Can we just go through, I know this is not like patentable, this is not your business, but what are some of the obvious things a person can do to strengthen his immune system?
So you ask, what activates the natural killer cell? So
yes.
It's like, when you look at the leaf and you talk about apoptosis, and the leaf actually sits and goes brown and it changes, but then it goes back up. So all of human nature, all of nature is filled with this biology of this balance. So you're a product of nature. I mean, literally you're a product of when you were a tadpole and a fish as we came out. So this cell is evolved since the Cambrian age. Think about that. This natural killer cell in your body. I published my first article in Natural Killer Cell in 1990. This cell was only discovered in 1970s. Think about that. And we've ignored that cell. This is what I call the missing link. I'm going to announce that at the American Urology Conference in Las Vegas in the end of this month. We have discovered, I've not discovered the missing link, we've discovered the awareness of this missing link and how to activate this missing link. So the idea is to activate the natural killer cell. It has 30,000 receptors on this cell. What this natural killer cell does, it replenishes itself with sleep. So sleep is important. It replenishes itself with light, with sunlight. And I believe there's a certain wavelength, the red wavelength in the sunlight, that it actually requires for it to be stimulated. So
this is why people get sicker in the winter.
Exactly. That's why Seattle has the highest suicide rate. Think about that, right? So these things, and if you look at the places like Norway and Sweden where there's very little sun, Finland. So nature's all about light, sunlight. So that's why I think this is...
I like obvious observation. Nature's all about sunlight, of course. Plants don't grow without sunlight.
Right. And at the end of the day, we either about neutrons, photons, and electrons. That's what we are. We as a human being is nothing else but a battery and end gate. When you think about that, right? So we have a bunch of electrons and neutrons and charges that floating through us that actually interact. And that's how I think of the human body. That's what I said. I think of it as an astrophysicist. It's crazy, but that's how my mind works.
So sleep, getting sunlight,
and having food that doesn't immunosuppress your biome, the bacteria in your body sends out materials that actually will immunosuppress or activate.
What are the immunosuppressive foods?
Unfortunately, I think most natural foods are fine. It's the toxins in the food. Exactly what I said, the excipients. So when we talk about the red dye, the processed foods, all this unnatural processed stuff ultimately cause inflammation. Now, when it gets back to this plasticity of inflammation causes immunosuppression because it causes all these cells to flip from the killer state to the suppressor state. That's why we said we have this dichotomy of, is the cat alive, is the cat dead?
You see it too in the elderly. It's why an infection or a diabetic foot infection can lead to a systemic infection and kill the person.
Correct.
Right.
That's why, when this guy discovered that H. pylori causes gastric ulcer, they said, you're nuts. It's acid.
I remember that so well. So
now when you think about that, so that's what I'm saying, this dogma.
But that's a consensus now, right? Acid does not cause ulcers.
Well, it's the cause and effect. So H. pylori causes the inflammation, and then the acid that's naturally in your stomach activates it.
But it's not the core cause.
Correct. But it's all about dogma. That's why I call this a vaccine, but it's a bioshield.